Hi, I'm Claire, and this is Read for Initiative, the Dungeons & Dragons inspired game that I use to pick what I read every month. If you missed last month's episode where I did more of an introduction to the whole concept, the basic idea is that I roll dice to pick how many things I'm going to read every month and what those things will be. January was the first month of the game, so I only did the first part, which was picking all of the books that I was going to read that month, but now it is time to introduce the second part of the game, the scoring element, which is where we get closer to the D&D inspiration of this, because of course I couldn't just roll dice to pick what to read. As soon as I started thinking about this idea, I started introducing more and more things to it. So in the end, there's experience points and level ups, and I picked a character class, and there's a bunch of buffs and debuffs, so I hope I can explain all of it as we go and it doesn't get too complicated, and I hope you all enjoy this. So right now I am a level 1 halfling rogue with no XP whatsoever, and in January the dice decided that I should read 5 books and fulfill 9 reading prompts, and I think it went pretty well overall. I read 8 books in January, so I smashed that part of the goal. I did almost all of the reading prompts. I was supposed to read in my reading nook for one of the prompts, and it's just an armchair that is next to my unread books shelf, and I ended up not doing that because in the meantime Tabby has fully claimed that armchair as hers. She likes to sit in a chair in the evenings. She likes to just like sprawl on a chair in the evening, which is when I would read in that armchair. You can't move a cat from the spot where they've decided to sleep. That's like illegal, so I didn't do that one, but I'm still very happy with how my reading went in January. Now, since the point of this game for me is mainly reading all of the things, that is the main way that I'm going to score points. I'm going to get 1 XP every page read, and I'm going to get a level up every 1000 XP. Nice and simple, keep the math to a minimum there. So in January, those 8 books that I read totaled 1,822 pages, so that's 1,822 XP and 1 level up. So now I'm level 2. Yay! But I also get bonus points if I read the number of books that the dice assign to me that month, and some more bonuses if I go above that. And look, I'm level 3. I could also win points if I fulfilled all of the reading prompts that the dice decided for me, but in this instance I get points off because I didn't quite finish all of my reading prompts. Thankfully, I'm not losing my level 3 quite yet. Also, because I'm playing as a rogue, I get bonus points for reading books under 250 pages. I literally just made up that rule because I love novellas so much. I read 2 of them this month, so that's some extra points, and I've almost fixed the damage from not finishing all of my reading prompts. Next up, I've got 2 side quests, which are to vanquish my TBR and buff my NetGalley ratio. Vanquish my TBR is all about reducing the number of unread books that I have on my physical shelves. So for this one, I'm going to get bonus points if I read more of my physical books than I bring new physical unread books into my shelves that month. So basically, if I'm buying like 3 new books, I should be reading 3 books off the shelves. This one I feel is going to be really tricky because just this month, when I had a fantastic reading month, I only managed it I acquired 5 new unread books this month, and I read 5 books off my physical shelf. So no points lost or gained there, no change at all. I feel like this one is going to make me lose a lot of points in future. And finally, because I'm trying to improve my NetGalley ratio, I'm going to win points if I manage to review more books on NetGalley than I acquire in my NetGalley queue that month. So if I request and get accepted for 2 new things on NetGalley, then I should be reviewing at least 2 books that I've got on my NetGalley queue. For this one, I did pretty good in January. I requested only 1 thing, which is a very important part of this, I feel like, is going to be not requesting a ton of review copies, but requested just 1 book on NetGalley, got accepted for it, and I ended up reviewing 4 different books in January, so that is a bunch of extra points for me. So that is scoring done for January. I am starting February on level 3 with just over 2000 XP to my name. I hope this part of the video made sense and wasn't too long and wasn't too complicated. I thought a long time about how I would convey all this information to you, but I would love to know your opinion about whether you enjoyed this, whether you thought it was too short or too long, do you want more detail, less detail, is it the right amount of detail? I'm going to put a poll in the side of the video for people to say, do you want more, less, or the same amount of this next month? And also, please, please, please give me your opinion in the comments below for this part of the video. And if you'd like to hear more about the actual books that I read in January and what I thought of them, I've got some wrap-ups and mini reviews coming up on the channel really, really soon. I already filmed the first 5, and then once I've read a couple more books in February, I'll do the next 5. I think lots of 5 is about right for the length of time that I want those videos to be, but that might change if I find that those videos are either too long or too short, though it won't be too short, I can tell you that already. But now let's get some dice rolling and let's pick some books to read in February. I am going to be focusing on 2019 releases this month. I feel like I'm quite far behind on reading SFF that came out in 2019. Now that award season is here and I'm a judge for the BookTube SFF Awards and I'm also nominating for the Hugos, I would like to read more 2019 releases that are eligible for both of these awards so that I know what's what. So I've got a big pile of those hyped 2019 releases that I haven't read yet on my unread shelf, so I am going to be prioritizing those. First up, let's see how many books I'm going to attempt to read in February. My base reading goal is 5 books a month, and I'm going to roll a constitution check on this D12 and see if I have to read just 5 books or more than that or fewer than that. So let's see what we get. And that is a 5, which is -1 book from my base of 5. So my reading goal for February is going to be at least 4 books. Hopefully I'll read more than that and get loads of bonus points, but that is the minimum that I need to hit to not lose points. Next, let's see how many reading prompts I'm going to have to try to fulfill this month. My base is 5 reading prompts, and I'm going to do an initiative check using this D20. Let's see how we go. That's a 19. I didn't expect 19 to come up. That's +6 prompts. Okay, well, let's pick 11 reading prompts then. The way this works is that I've got 3 random encounter tables filled with a bunch of reading prompts. I've tweaked some things since last month. I've added some things. The way that I'm going to pick my reading prompts is using this D6 to pick between the 3 random encounter tables, and then using these 2 D10s to pick between 1 and 100. There's not 100 reading prompt per table because that would be too many to come up with, but there's a good spread anyway. There's a very good amount of them, so hopefully there will be no repeats from last month. Roll the first. So that's number 62 in the 3rd table, and that is read a 2020 release, which is not what I was after because, like I said, I wanted to read books from last year, but I can definitely make it work because I've got a bunch of new books that I acquired in January, as well as some review copies. So because I've got so many prompts to get through, and because a lot of the 2019 releases that I want to read are novels, I'm going to pick something short for this, and I'm going to read Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey. I love Gailey's work. They always write things that are just incredibly cool in my opinion, and this one is another badass story, I'm sure, about a young woman who stows away on a library train to escape a marriage she doesn't want, and it is like in the Wild West or something like that. It's alternate history, badass librarians on a train, and I'm here for it. I have a review copy of this. It comes out like in a few days' time. I think I should have read it in January. I didn't have time, so that is going on the February TBR for certain. Roll number 2. That is again in the third table, and that's number 75. 75 is read a backlist book published before 2019. Once again, this system does not want me to do the thing I wanted to do, which was reading 2019 releases. It's fine, I've got 9 more reading prompts to go. What's a backlist book that I've been wanting to read? Let me have a look at my shelf, which is right next to me out of frame. So for this one, I've picked another novella, and that is The Black Tides of Heaven by J.Y. Yang. I am not sure if this technically should count as backlist or not. It was published in 2017, so it's definitely a few years old. I saw a video this morning from Kayla of Books and Lala where she talked about not knowing the definition of the backlist, and that made me realize that I also don't know the definition of a backlist book. So if you like work in publishing and have an actual definition, please let me know in the comments. I am probably gonna read this one anyway because, you know, the prompts are like the pirate code. They are more of a guideline, really. And this one is book 1 in the Tensorette series. It's Silk Punk. The series is now, I think, finished with 4 novellas, and a lot of my friends have read this and absolutely adored it, so I'm looking forward to it. I've never read anything from J.Y. Yang before, but I follow them on Twitter and they seem cool, so there we go. Roll the third. That is another number 62, but that's in the first table, so that is read a sequel. Now, I do have a sequel from 2019 that I want to read. It's finally time for me to read The True Queen by Zen Cho. This is the second book in her Sorcerer Royal series. I'm not sure if that's actually the title of the series, but the first book was Sorcerer to the Crown. Absolutely loved that book, and this is a book set in the same universe. It features some of the same characters, so I'm definitely going to call it a sequel, even though it focuses on different main characters in this one. But I have been meaning to read it since it came out. I think I pre-ordered this and I haven't gotten to it yet. It's about 2 sisters and they wash up on a beach, not really knowing what happened to them, and they have to prevent one of the 2 sisters from disappearing, if I remember this correctly. So they go and find the main characters from the first book to help them with the magic that's involved in this, obviously. Roll number 4, we've got 87 in the third table, and that is read a book with pink on the cover. And for this, I know exactly what I want to read. It is The Future of Another Timeline by Annalee Newitz. Some people might look at this and call it like orangey, I guess, but I see this as like a really bright, hot pink, certainly coral toned. I definitely want to read this in time to nominate it for various awards if I love it, as I suspect that I will, because it's all about politics and time travel and trying to use time travel to change the world in good ways and bad ways depending on what characters we follow in this book. So I'm really hyped for it. Very excited to be reading this in February. Roll number 5. Oops, they are not all in frame, sorry about that. That is number 26 in the first table, and that is read a most anticipated book. So for me, most anticipated books isn't necessarily a book that's like right now about to come out, but I would say a book that I had on my most anticipated list in like relatively recent time. I feel like last year is fair game, and one of my very most anticipated books of last year, if not the most anticipated, was The Raven Tower by Ann Leckie, which is Ann Leckie's first fantasy novel, and I absolutely love her writing. I know some stuff about this, like the fact that there's large chunks in the second person, and it's about like a crow god in a tower, but mostly I have kind of avoided learning anything about this because I'm just so excited to dive in, and I don't need to know anything because I absolutely trust Ann Leckie's writing. So again, this is one I definitely want to read for awards consideration, and yes, I need to put it in my eyeballs as soon as possible because I have been neglecting it for far too long. Next up we have, let's see, number 24 in the second table, and that is Wildcard from the TBR. This is basically what it says on the tin. Pick any book that I want that I'm in the mood for reading from the TBR shelf, the unread books shelf. So basically the only constraint is it has to be a book that physically exists on my shelf, not an audiobook or an ebook. And for this one, most likely I'm gonna read The Hidden Witch by Molly Knox Ostertag, the sequel to The Witch Boy. I really love the first book in this series. These are graphic novels, so they'll go really quick, hopefully. I did this as a Secret Santa present from the exchange that we did on our Stitch and Bitch live streams, and I've been wanting to get into this book and then its sequel since I got the books, but I couldn't fit them in on the January TBR, so February it will have to be. Number 7, we've got 65 in the third table. So that is read an urban fantasy book. None of the things that I've picked so far are urban fantasy, so I can't double on this prompt, and I don't think I have any urban fantasy on my shelves. What I do have is an ebook of Vigil by Angela Slatter, which was recommended to me by my Twitter friend Elizabeth Fitz, who is an SFF fan and editor from Australia, and she recommended Vigil as urban fantasy and also work from an Australian writer, and I'm really excited because I read Angela Slatter's novella for Tor.com of Sorrow and Such a few years ago, and I loved it so much, and can't believe I've been sleeping on like reading more Angela Slatter for so long. So that, I think, is what I'm gonna add. It's another novel. We're up to rule number 8, and I really need to start combining prompts here because I've got a lot of books already on my TBR for the shortest months of the year. So let's see how we go. This is not even in frame. That is 52 in the third table. Again, the third table is very popular this time around. And number 52 is Read a NetGalley arc, which, thank goodness, I've already got a NetGalley arc on this list. That is Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey, and I'm just going to double up on that prompt because 11 reading prompts is a lot. I don't think I can read 11 books in a month. Phew! Let's get on to number 9, which is 12 in the second table, and that is Read a Book with Black on the cover. I've got several books with black on the cover already on my list. I am going to count The Raven Tower by Ann Leckie for this prompt because, as you have seen, it is mostly black on the cover. Thank goodness for the double-ups that are starting to appear in this list. Rule number 10 is 88. Can you even see that? Yeah, there we go. 88 in the second table, and that is Read a Book picked by Patreon. This is very exciting. So the options for this poll will be 3 2019 releases that I'm really excited to read. For awards purposes, again, we have Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is a book set in Mexico in the Jazz Age, and it's about a young woman who makes a deal with the Mayan god of death, if I remember correctly, to help him reclaim his stolen throne. This is an author whose work I've loved before, so very excited to get to that at some point. We've also got a memory called Empire by R.K. Martin. This is a debut novel that has been giving me all of the Ann Leckie Imperial Ratch vibes. It's about a newly appointed ambassador in this, like, intergalactic empire. She arrives in her post not knowing what happened to her predecessor and realizes that they have died and that they might have gotten murdered, and she needs to figure out what happened to them if she's not gonna get also murdered. And finally, another debut, The Rage of Dragons by Evan Winter, which was pitched as an epic fantasy Game of Thrones meets Gladiator. That sounds fascinating to me. It has dragons. I'm excited to pick it up. It is a chunker. All three of these books, they are not small. I am not giving Patreon the opportunity to pick like a safe, easy book for me. These are all things that I really want to read, but it's going to be tight to squeeze into February. So I will let you know which of these three books my patrons pick. Everybody on the Patreon from the $1 tier up will be able to vote, and I will probably be tweeting the results because that'll be easier than waiting until next month. And lastly, for my 11th and final roll of the month, that is just nonsense, and I just realized now that I made my character a halfling and gave them the ability to reroll one dice every month, so I could have totally rerolled that 19 for the reading prompts, but I forgot that that was a thing. So let's see. I mean, I don't think I'll necessarily need to even reroll anything for this reading prompt, but let's see. We've got number 5 in the third table, and that is read a graphic novel, which is very kind of the reading prompt tables. Well, I've already got a graphic novel on my list, which is The Hidden Witch, but since we're here and I need to read another book, I am going to just pick up very quickly The Midwinter Witch by Molly Knox Ostertag, which is the final book in that series. I might read this if I have time, or I might double up, but this is so quick to read. Hopefully I'll have time. We'll see. This is just an incredible amount of books compared to what I was expecting to have to read this month. So if all goes according to plan, in February I should be reading Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey to fulfill the prompt of reading a NetGalley ARC and a book published in 2020. The Black Tides of Heaven by J.Y. Yang to read a book published before 2019 and possibly a backlist title. Who knows what that actually means? The True Queen by Zen Cho to read a sequel. The Future of Another Timeline by Anna Lee Newitz to read a book with pink on the cover. The Raven Tower by Anne Leckie to read a most anticipated book and a book with black on the cover. Vigil by Angela Slatter to read an urban fantasy book. The Hidden Witch by Molly Knox Ostertag to read a graphic novel. And possibly The Midwinter Witch, also by Molly Knox Ostertag, as my wildcard TBR pick. I know that's not the order I did them in the video, but I think it makes more sense in that order, given that the wildcard could be anything. Literally anything from the TBR shelf. And I will also read one of these 3 books as picked by Patreon. So that gives us 1 or 2 graphic novels, 2 novellas, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 novels. So that's exciting. I don't know how I'm gonna read 5 full-length novels in February, but we're gonna try. This was a great idea. What a fantastic game. I'm not worried about it at all. So that's it. This was Read for Initiative for February. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do let me know what you think about it in the comments below. And please wish me luck for this ridiculous TBR. If you'd like to see more from me, you can check out a previous video on screen right now. And if you haven't yet, please hit the subscribe button that's on my face for a new video from me every week. I've been Claire, thanks so much for watching, and see you soon.